Welcome to the Caltex Theatre, a full hour of dramatic entertainment broadcast over a nationwide network of stations throughout Australia. The Caltex Theatre is brought to you by Caltex Oil, marketers of over 1,000 outstanding petroleum products, in association with Caltex dealers and distributors everywhere. Tonight in the Caltex Theatre, you will hear the story of the lady from the sea, who married a man she believed she loved, only to find herself irresistibly drawn back to the lover the sea had given her years before. Starring as the lady from the sea, you will hear Moya O'Sullivan. Your producer, E. Mason Wood. The Caltex Theatre presents The Lady from the Sea, Act 1.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning, sir. I say good morning, though I don't believe I've had the pleasure of...
You're a painter.
Any reason why I shouldn't be?
Oh, none at all. I saw your easel set up here in the garden, and do you mind if I have a look at it?
It's that bit of fjord you can see over there, with the islands. Fine scenery in this part of Norway.
Yes, indeed.
I haven't done the figure yet.
Figure?
Well, a painter needs something symbolical in his work these days. After all, we'll soon be into the 20th century. Art's becoming progressive.
Oh, what sort of figure?
I'm going to put a mermaid by that rock in the foreground. She's dying.
Why dying?
She strayed in from the sea and can't find her way back. And there she lies, spent and dying in the brackish water. It was the lady of the house here who gave me the idea.
Oh, Mrs. Van Gell.
That's right. You're not an artist yourself by any chance?
I'm trying to be a sculptor. My name's Hans Lyngstrand.
Well, there's a lot to be said for sculpture. My name's Ballasted. I do a bit of everything round here. A man has to in these small towns. The Dr. Van Gel's daughters have asked me to put up these decorations for them.
Quite festive.
You've been here long?
Only a fortnight, but I'm hoping to stay the whole summer. I want to build up my strength if I can.
Something wrong with you?
Oh, just a little chest trouble, nothing serious. Dr. Van Gel's had a look at me.
You couldn't do better. Trouble with this town, though, it's invaded by tourists in the summer. Another steamer coming in now.
You were born here?
No, but I've acclimatized myself. I've been here 18 years now. I came here with Skeever's Theatrical Company. Decided to stay. I was the scene painter as well, you know.
Oh, there are Miss Hilda and Miss Belletta.
You know the doctor's daughters?
Oh, not very well, but...
Oh, the steamer's at the pier already. I must get to the hotel in case I'm wanted. I'm a tonsorial artist as well, you know. Shaving, hair-cutting, curling, waving. If you should need anything in that line, ask for Mr. Ballasted, the Professor of Dancing.
Professor of Dancing?
Or for the Director of the Town Band, if you like.
Jack of all trades.
Master of Arts. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well, Mr. Lyngstrand, so you've nerved yourself to call at last.
Good morning, Miss Hilda. Miss Belletta.
Have you had your bathe?
Yes, I went in for a few minutes. I saw your mother down there. She was just going into her bathing hut.
Who was?
Your mother.
Oh.
Don't our flowers look nice?
Oh, they do indeed, Miss Belletta. It looks like a celebration of some kind.
It is. It's our mother's birthday.
Hilda.
Leave me alone, Belletta. Well, Mr. Lyngstrand, I suppose you're going back to lunch now.
Oh, yes, I suppose I had better go.
You will excuse us today, Mr. Lyngstrand. Some other time, perhaps, when you've nothing better to do and feel you'd like to. I do hope you'll come along and see Father and us.
Oh, thank you, Miss Belletta. I should like to very much. Goodbye for the present.
Goodbye. Hilda, why did you have to say that about the birthday?
Why not?
Oh, you're so rude to him.
His father... Oh, but that can't be Mr. Arnhem with him.
Oh, don't be silly, Hilda. That middle-aged man... Oh, but wait a minute. I do believe it is.
Girls, come and welcome Mr. Arnhem.
It is.
Why, I should hardly have known them.
I'm sure you wouldn't after, 8 or 9 years?
It's nice to see you again, Mr. Arnhem.
It's wonderful to be here again. I think I should have recognized you, Boletta.
Suppose we sit on the veranda. It's cooler there. Girls, will you take Mr. Arnhem's things inside?
Yes, Father. Come along, Hilda.
What a lovely girl, Boletta. What lovely girls they've grown into.
Yes, haven't they?
Doctor, do you think you'll ever move from here?
No, I don't think so. I was born and bred here, and I lived happily here with the girl's mother until I lost her all too soon. Now I live very happily with my second wife. Elida will be back in a minute. She's gone down to have a bathe. She goes every day, no matter what the weather.
Does she? She's well, I hope.
Well, her nerves have been troubling her from time to time these last few years. But so long as she can get into the sea, she's perfectly happy.
Yes, I remember that.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. You knew Elida when you were teaching at Skjoldvik.
When I went to the lighthouse to see her father, she was usually there.
Those years have left a very deep impression on her. She's a bit of an enigma to the people around here. They call her the Lady from the Sea.
Really?
Arnhem, I do wish you'd talk to her about the old days. It might do her good.
Do you really think so?
Paul, where are you?
Here I am, my dear. You see, our mermaid's back.
Oh, Paul, I'm so glad you're home.
Don't you recognize anybody else?
Oh, so you did come after all. You're very welcome, Mr. Arnhem.
Thank you.
Was the water fresh?
Fresh? It's never fresh. It's tepid and stale. The water up here in the fjord is lifeless. Do you see how gay the girls have made the place look in your honour, Mr. Arnhem?
Well, it's time I...
Is it really in my honour?
Of course. You don't think we do this sort of thing every day?
Elida, my dear, I'm afraid I shall have to leave you to entertain our friend by yourself for a little while. I've got to go down to the surgery.
Very well, Paul.
I don't suppose I shall be very long.
The last time I saw you was out at Skjoldvik.
10 years ago, at least.
I should never have imagined that I'd come back here one day and find you as Mrs. Van Gogh.
Of course not. The girl's mother was alive then. Their real mother.
But even if he'd been free, I could never have imagined...
Nor could I. Not at that time.
Van Gogh's a fine man. But he must be completely different from you.
You're quite right. We are different.
How did it come about?
You mustn't ask me that.
Have you ever said anything to your husband about me? I mean about the step I once attempted to take?
No, I've never said a word to him about that. I only told him what was quite true. That I liked you very much. That you were the best friend I had out there.
Why have you never written to me?
I thought it might be painful to you to hear from someone who couldn't be to you what you wanted. You've never written to me.
I? And perhaps lead you to think that I was hoping to begin it all over again after you'd refused me?
Why haven't you married anyone else?
I preferred to remain faithful to my memories.
Oh, nonsense. You should be thinking of getting happily married.
Then I shall have to be quick about it. I'm nearly 38.
At the time you asked me, you didn't know it, but my whole heart and mind were already given elsewhere.
I didn't think you knew the doctor at that time.
I'm not talking about him. Oh, it was sheer and utter madness, the whole thing.
Does your husband know about it?
I told him at the very first that my thoughts had once turned elsewhere. He didn't question me, and we haven't spoken of it since. It's all over now, in a sense.
In a sense?
Oh, come along in, Mr. Lyngstrand. Don't be shy.
Oh, I do beg your pardon. I understand today is a rather special occasion, and I hope you won't mind accepting these as a small token of...
Oh, but why not give these lovely flowers to Mr. Arnhem himself? After all, the celebrations are in his honour.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't quite... Well, I mean, I'm afraid I don't know this gentleman.
Mr. Arnhem was once Boletta's teacher.
I really brought the flowers for you, Mrs. Van Gogh, as a birthday present.
Birthday
Miss
present?
Hilda said the decorations were for her mother's birthday.
Oh, yes, I see. Well, since you've found out, it's Very kind of you, Mr. Lingstrand. Thank you. Aren't they delightful flowers, Mr. Arnhem?
They are indeed.
Mr. Lingstrand, the doctor told me about your chest trouble. How did it start?
Oh, I was at sea and we were wrecked in the English Channel. It was caused by the long period I had in the icy water. It was just what I wanted. I couldn't go to sea anymore, so now I can be a sculptor, which has always been my wish.
And what are you going to model? Mermaids? The old Vikings?
No, as soon as I'm ready, I'm going to try a group, something based on my own experiences. There'll be a young woman asleep, a sailor's wife, but her sleep is uneasy. She's dreaming. And then there's the figure of her husband. She's been unfaithful to him while he was at sea, and now he's been drowned.
Drowned?
On the other side of the world. And now here he is, all wet, as if he'd just been taken from the sea.
But you don't tell us, Mr. Lingstrand, that this is drawn from your own experience.
Well, in a way...
Please, tell me all about it.
Yes, this would appeal to you. Anything with the sea in it.
Go on, Mr. Lingstrand.
Well, there was an American boatswain on board.
American?
He borrowed a bundle of old newspapers from the captain. He spent all his spare time poring over them. He said he wanted to learn Norwegian.
Yes.
Well, one night there were just the two of us. And suddenly I heard him cry out. He was as white as a sheet. And then he was tearing the paper to shreds. After about a minute he said, "I'm away," and she marries another man.
What happened after that?
Well, this is the really extraordinary part. I'll never forget it as long as I live. He added very quietly, "But she's mine, and she's still mine, and she'll follow me even if I should come to her like a drowned man from the bottom of the sea."
Do you know what became of him?
Oh, he can't possibly be alive. It was shortly afterwards that we were shipwrecked. He got into a dinghy with the mate and one other man, and nothing's been heard of them since. So now you see what gave me the idea. The unfaithful wife, the husband from the bottom of the sea. I see it all quite clearly.
Yes, so do I. Shall we try and find Dr. Van Gale? It's stifling here.
As a matter of fact, I must be going. I only looked in to wish you many happy returns of the day.
Well, if you feel you must. Goodbye, and thank you so much for the flowers.
Goodbye, Mrs. Van Gale.
Why have you let yourself be disturbed by this young man's silly story?
It's not so silly as you think.
You really are upset. Why, I thought that you...
What did you think?
I simply thought that you were drawing him out to cover up your distress at learning that your husband and his children were keeping up a birthday and sharing memories from which you were excluded.
Oh, good gracious, no. You can't alter a thing like that. I've no right to claim my husband exclusively for myself.
I should have said you had.
Yes, I know. But for all that, I haven't. That's just it. You see, I live a life in which they have no part.
Does that mean that you don't really love your husband?
No, indeed it doesn't. Oh, I've grown to love him with all my heart. That's what makes it so terrible, so incredible.
Why not tell me about it?
I can't. At any rate, not now. Someday, perhaps.
Look at them both, walking so slowly with Father and the lady from the sea.
Mr. Lingstrand can't walk quickly, especially up hills.
But of course not.
You haven't the slightest pity for him, have you, Hilda?
No. But I find it irresistible.
What's irresistible?
Watching him. Making him say his illness isn't serious, that he's going abroad and he's going to be a great artist. He believes every word of it, and he's so completely happy about it. And none of it'll ever happen. It can't possibly. He won't live long enough. It's perfectly fascinating.
Oh, Hilda, you're being horrid.
It doesn't look as though Mr. Arnhem enjoys the climbing either. By the way, Belletta, what do you think I noticed about him at dinner?
What?
He's going bald. He's got a dear little pink patch right on the top of his head.
Oh, nonsense. I'm sure he hasn't.
He has. Belletta, how did you manage to be so silly about him when he was your tutor?
Oh, hush, they're nearly here.
The way you flew up here.
Are you coming with us to the top, to Pilot's Peak?
Your mother and I will stay here. You girls take the gentlemen with you and show them the view.
Would you like us to, Mr. Arnhem?
Oh, yes, yes. Very much indeed.
You too, Mr. Lingstrand?
Oh, yes, Miss Hilda.
Come along, then.
Well, this is rather jolly. Things can't go on like this, Alida.
Then what do you suggest, Paul?
A true marriage as we once had it.
If only we could, but it's impossible.
I know you can't bear it here. Our mountains oppress you. They weigh you down. There's not enough open sky. You feel as if you can't breathe here.
That's perfectly true. I'm never without this homesick longing for the sea.
And that's why the sick child must be taken home again.
What do you mean?
We leave here. We'll find somewhere by the open sea where you can make a real home and be at peace with yourself.
Oh, no, Paul, you mustn't think of it. You'd never be happy anywhere else in the world but here.
I've quite made up my mind about it.
And what do we gain?
You'll regain your health, your peace of mind.
But what about you? What will you gain?
I shall regain you, my dear.
But that's just what you can't do. That's just the cruel, the terrible part of it.
I've made up my mind.
No. Rather than that, I'll tell you everything.
I wish you would.
The day you came out to Skeldvik and asked me to marry you, you spoke very frankly and loyally about your first marriage and told me how happy it had been. And I was equally frank with you. I told you that there'd been someone else and that there'd been a kind of engagement between us.
Dear Alida, why go back over all this? It really wasn't my business. I've never even asked you who he was. Actually, it wasn't so very difficult to guess his name.
You think it was Mr. Arnhem?
Yes, wasn't it?
No.
It wasn't.
Do you remember, late one autumn, a large American ship putting into Skeldvik for repairs?
Oh, yes, indeed I do. The captain was found murdered in his cabin one fine morning. I went over to do the post-mortem. The second mate was supposed to have murdered him, wasn't he?
It was never proved.
No, but I never thought there was very much doubt about it. Otherwise, why should he have drowned himself?
He didn't. He took the first ship north.
How do you know?
Because he was the man to whom I was engaged.
What? But how on earth could you... What was his name?
At that time, he called himself Freeman. Later on, he signed his letters Alfred Johnston.
Alida, what could you talk about with a man like that?
The sea, mostly.
Ah, yes, about the sea.
We used to talk about the great storms and the dead calms, about the dark nights and the glittering days at sea. But most of all, we talked about the whales, the dolphins, the seals basking on the reefs, the gulls, and all the other living creatures of the sea. It's strange, but when we talked of them, I used to feel that he was one of them.
And what about you?
I felt almost as if I belonged with them too.
And so you became engaged to him?
Yes. He said to me, "You must."
Must? Hadn't you any will of your own?
Never when he was with me. One morning, very early, I received a note from him, telling me that I was to go to him at Brathammer.
And you went?
I couldn't help myself. He told me that he'd stabbed the captain during the night.
He told you?
He said he'd only done what was right. He had to get away. Just as he was going to say goodbye, he took a keyring out of his pocket and drew the gold ring off his finger. Then he took the little ring I was wearing and put our 2 rings on the keyring, saying, "Now we shall both be wedded to the sea, and both together."
Wedded?
Then he threw the linked rings out to sea with all his might.
And you accepted it like that?
At that moment, I felt it had to be. Oh, thank heavens he went away.
You said something about letters.
He wrote me first from Archangel, simply saying that he was going to America and giving me an address where I could write to him there.
And did you?
Yes, at once. I told him that all must be over between us, that I wanted to forget him. But he wrote back, ignoring my letter, as if I'd never broken with him, saying I must wait for him, that he'd let me know the moment he could have me with him, and that when he did, I was to leave at once. I stopped writing, but I've had 3 letters since from all over the world.
He must have had an extraordinary hold on you.
Yes, that terrible man.
Well, you mustn't think any more about it. We're going to try a new cure for you. The fine, salty tang of real sea breezes.
It wouldn't do any good. I should never be able to conquer it.
Conquer what?
My fear of him, the power he has over me.
But you have conquered it. It's all over and done with.
No, it isn't. I'm afraid it'll never be over as long as we live.
Do you mean to say that in your inmost heart you've never been able to forget this man?
At one time, I thought I had forgotten him. Then suddenly he seemed to come to life again.
When was this?
About 3 years ago, when I was expecting our child who later died.
Now I begin to understand a lot of things. To think that for the last 3 years you've loved someone else. Not me, but another man.
No, Paul. No, you're wrong. I love no one but you.
Then why have you refused to live with me as my wife during all that time?
Because of the fear he's put into me.
Fear?
Such a fear as comes only from the sea.
Hello? Are you still there?
Yes, Pauletta.
We thought of going down to join the dancing.
Good. We'll come down in a few minutes.
Oh, Mr. Lingstrand, just a moment.
Coming. Yes, Mrs. Van Gell.
Tell me, how long ago was it you went on that voyage you told me about this morning?
Oh, it's about, let me see. Yes, just about 3 years ago.
Just the very time.
Lita.
We'll see you presently, Mr. Lingstrand. The others are waiting for you.
I won't do much dancing, I'm afraid.
Why did you question him about that voyage?
Johnston was on that ship, I'm sure of it.
What makes you think so?
It was on that voyage that he discovered I'd married someone else. And it was at that very moment that it came over me.
This fear?
It comes quite suddenly. Suddenly there he is. He never looks at me, he just stands there. He looks just as I saw him last at Brathammer.
My dear, you're more ill than I thought. More ill, perhaps, than you realize.
Oh, yes, help me if you can. I feel it closing in around me, closer and closer, and then... Paul, why do you think our boy's eyes were like that?
My dear girl, I assure you that was just your imagination. The child's eyes were perfectly normal.
No, they weren't. His eyes changed with the colour of the sea. Light when it was light and dark when it was dark.
Well, supposing they did.
I've seen eyes like that before. 10 years ago at Brathammer.
Alida.
Now you know why I can never live with you as your wife.
All by yourself, Boletta?
Oh, Mr. Arnhem, sometimes I feel like a fish in that pond.
The carp?
They have the fjord almost next door, with great crowds of sea fish coming and going. But the poor domestic pond fish know nothing whatever about it and can never share in it. That's how we are here, completely cut off from the world.
Boletta, what is it you really want?
Oh, to get away from here.
Most...
And then I want to learn. Oh, there's so much I don't know.
But your father often used to say he'd let you go to college.
Oh, poor father. He says so many things. But when it comes to doing them, well, he never seems to have the energy.
Well, what a pleasant spot you have here.
Yes, isn't it? Have you been for a walk?
Yes, a lovely long walk with the doctor. And now he's going to pick me up here and we're going for a sail.
Wouldn't you like to sit down, Alida?
No, thank you.
There's plenty of room.
No, I don't want to sit down.
Your walk seems to have done you good, Mrs. Van Gell. You've quite a colour.
I feel so well, so wonderfully happy and so safe. What's that big steamer just come in?
It must be the English boat.
Well, does she usually stop here?
Only for about half an hour. Then she goes on up the fjord.
And then tomorrow, outward bound again. Out to sea. The great open sea. Oh, fancy being on her if only we could.
And we have to be content with dry land.
Well, it's our native element after all.
I don't believe that for one moment. I believe that if human beings had always made their lives on the sea, or even in the sea, we should be a lot happier than we are. Oh, I wonder why Paul doesn't come. Dear Mr. Arnhem, would you mind trying to find him for me?
Yes, with pleasure.
And tell him to hurry, because I can't see him.
Can't see him?
When he's not with me, I sometimes can't remember what he looks like. And then it's just as if I'd lost him completely.
I'll go at once.
I'll come with you.
Oh, please don't bother. I'll find him.
No, I'm worried. Please let me.
Oh, what will happen, Paul, if I do lose you completely? I don't dare think.
Good evening, Alida.
Oh, Paul, my dear. Oh, there you are at last.
I'm here at last, but I'm not Paul.
Who are you? I don't know you.
Don't you?
Are you looking for someone?
You know I am, Alida.
Why do you speak like that? Who are you looking for?
You.
Those eyes. Oh, those eyes!
And so the curtain falls on Act 1 of tonight's Caltex play, The Lady from the Sea.
If you care for your car, fill up with the gasoline designed to take better care of your car's performance. If you're already a confirmed Caltex man, you'll know what we mean. If you're not, fill up with Caltex butane-boosted gasoline and see what a performance difference there is. Caltex butane-boosted gasoline gives faster starts, smoother acceleration, and more economical running. The gasoline designed for today's faster pace, Caltex butane-boosted gasoline, takes better care of your car's performance. Drive in for Caltex butane-boosted gasoline at the sign of the Caltex Star, where we take better care of your car.
The Caltex Theatre now presents Moya O'Sullivan in The Lady from the Sea, Act 2.
Those eyes.
So you're beginning to recognize me at last. I knew at once, Alida.
Don't look at me like that. I shall call for help.
There's nothing to be afraid of. I just got here. I came in the English boat.
What do you want with me?
I promised you I'd come as soon as I could.
Go away again. And never come back here. Never.
I wanted to come sooner, but I couldn't. However, I've managed at last. And here I am, Alida. I've come to take you away.
No! No, it can't have happened.
Perhaps you don't want to come.
You know I'm married.
Yes, I know you're married.
Don't look at me like that.
I'm simply asking you, don't you want to come?
No, never. I won't. I daren't.
Very well, Alida. But before I go, just let me say one thing.
Don't touch me.
You mustn't be afraid of me, Alida.
Sorry to have kept you so long, my dear.
Oh, Paul. Oh, Paul, save me. Do what you can.
Alida, what on earth?
Don't you see him? There he is.
May I ask who you are and what you're doing here?
I want to speak to her.
Do you know him, Alida?
Yes, I know him. Yes.
Well?
He's come. Paul, you know who I mean.
Are you the Johnston who at one time...
You can call me Johnston if you like. It's not my name, though.
What do you want with my wife? Surely you must know that the girl who lived at the lighthouse has been married for years.
I've known it for over 3 years.
How did you get to know?
It was when I was on my way to you, Alida. I came across an old Norwegian newspaper, a local one. The announcement of your marriage was in it.
So it was that.
I was astonished. For our little ceremony with the rings was a marriage too, Alida.
Now that you understand the situation, what is there for you to do here?
I promised Alida that I'd come to her as soon as I could. And Alida promised to wait.
Don't you understand? I'll have nothing more to do with you.
You don't imagine you can take her from me by force, do you, and against her will?
No. What would be the use of that? Alida must come to me of her own free will.
Of my own free will.
You must be out of your mind.
Time I was getting back on board. I've done what I promised, Alida. I've kept my word.
Don't touch me.
Now you must think it over. Until tomorrow night.
There's nothing to think over.
Alida, I'm going up the fjord on the steamer now. When I get back tomorrow night, I'll see you again. You must wait for me here in the garden.
No. No, don't come tomorrow night. Don't come again, ever.
Don't be afraid, Alida.
And remember this. If you don't come with me tomorrow, all will be over.
All over? Forever?
Yes, forever. I shall never return to this country. You'll never see me again.
Oh.
So think carefully what you're going to do. Until tomorrow night, Alida.
Of my own free will. He said I must go with him. Of my own free will.
He's gone. You'll never have to see him again.
Oh, Paul, don't think you can stop him.
Of course I can. Just you leave it to me.
After he's been here tomorrow night and gone away again over the sea, I wonder if he really will never come back again.
Of course he won't, my dear. You can be quite sure of that.
Then it's tomorrow or never.
Even if he should decide to come here again, I rather think we have ways and means of dealing with him.
What?
He can be brought to book for the murder of the captain.
No. We know nothing about the murder of the captain.
But he confessed it to you himself.
No, he never said anything. If you say anything about it, I shall deny it. He shan't be shut up. He belongs out there to the open sea, always. Oh, Paul, save me from myself.
Is there something in all this that perhaps I haven't...
That's the most powerful spell of all.
Spell?
And that man is like the sea.
Miss Billetta, have you ever thought about marriage? I mean the subject of marriage.
About... No, Mr. Lyngstrand.
Oh, I have. I often think about things like that. I've read a number of books on the subject. In the perfect marriage, the woman changes and gradually becomes more and more like her husband.
Has it never occurred to you that the man might be changed and gradually become more and more like his wife?
The man? Oh, no, I never thought of that. A man has his work to live for, and that gives him strength and determination and a feeling of purpose.
Every man?
Well, no, I was thinking rather of artists, like myself.
Then don't you think it would be better for such a man to live for his art alone?
Well, of course, but he can still do that, even if he's married.
What about his wife?
Oh, she must live for his art, too. You know, I think that must always be such great happiness for a woman, to know that she can actually help him to create, simply by being always there to encourage him, to look after him.
You've no idea how selfish you sound.
I? Selfish? Oh, Miss Billetta, after I'm gone, and that won't be very long now...
Oh, you must not think of sad things like that.
Oh, I don't think it's particularly sad that I'm going away to the south to stay with my friend.
Oh, I see.
Will you think of me sometimes, Miss Billetta?
Yes, indeed I will.
Oh, you don't know what it'll mean to me, to feel that someone here is thinking of me, helping me to create.
Nothing will come of it.
Oh, but it will, Miss Billetta. At the very least, it will help me to get on with my statue.
Well, good morning, Billetta, my dear. Oh, good morning, Mr...
Good morning, Mr. Arnhem.
Did your stepmother go for a bathe today?
No, she's still in her room.
Isn't she well?
I don't know.
I thought Mrs. Van Gell seemed to be rather upset about that American yesterday.
What do you know about it?
Nothing. Only I happened to tell Mrs. Van Gell I'd seen him here in the flesh when I thought he was dead. I remarked how extraordinary it was.
Oh, excuse me. There's Dr. Van Gell, and I want to talk to him. Excuse me, Billetta.
Of course, Mr. Arnhem. Come, Mr. Lyngstrand.
Doctor!
Ah, there you are, Arnold. Very good of you to come so early this morning.
Do you know anything about that young man?
Lyngstrand? No, not very much. Why?
Oh, nothing really. It struck me he's seeing rather a lot of Billetta, that's all. However...
Arnhem, have you thought any more about what I was telling you last night?
I've scarcely thought about anything else.
Tell me, haven't you noticed that the people whose lives are spent by the open sea are a race apart? They seem to develop a temperamental affinity with the sea. Their thoughts and feelings seem to fluctuate like the waves or the tides, and they can never stand being transplanted. I should have remembered that. I did Alida a great wrong when I took her away from the sea and brought her here.
Do you really believe that?
Yes, I do. I've thought it for some time now. That's why I wrote and asked you to come.
Why you asked me?
But don't say anything about it. I realize now that I was on the wrong track. I thought Alida had once been attracted to you, and that to see you again and talk over old times might do her good.
Then it was your wife you meant when you wrote and told me that there was someone here who'd be delighted to see me again.
Yes. Who else?
Oh, yes, of course. Doctor, what do you make of the power this fellow seems to exercise over her?
I'm at my wit's end.
Oh, here she is.
Paul, you won't go out this morning, will you?
No, my dear, of course I won't. I'm going to stay here with you. Well, aren't you going to say good morning to Arnhem?
Oh, of course. Good morning, Mr. Arnhem. Won't you sit down with us?
No, I don't think I will, if you don't mind. If you'll excuse me, I want to find Valletta.
Of course.
She's gone off somewhere with young Lingstar.
What time is it, Paul?
Just after 11.
Just after 11. And tonight, sometime after 11, the steamer will be here. Oh, if only it were all over.
Alida, my dear.
Paul, the time has come when we must be completely honest with each other.
Well?
The simple truth is that you came out to Skjoldvik and bought me.
Bought you?
Well, I was no better than you. I accepted the bargain.
Have you really the heart to say that?
You were finding loneliness unbearable. You were looking for a new wife and a new mother for your children. You found me, helpless, confused, and alone. It was only natural that I should accept your bargain when you came and offered me security for the rest of my life.
Oh, believe me, I never thought of it like that.
Paul, no one could ask for more than I've had from you. But I didn't come here of my own free will, and that's what's wrong.
Not of your own free will. Yes, that was the phrase he used.
That's why our life together isn't a marriage at all. But the first, that might have been a real marriage.
The first?
Mine with him.
I can't understand you.
We can never get away from it. A promise given of one's own free will is just as binding as a marriage. Paul, let me leave you.
A divorce, is that what you want?
I don't care what form it takes. What I want is that we two should agree to release each other, of our own free will.
To cancel the bargain.
Exactly. Give me back my freedom, Paul.
Well, at least give me time to think. Give yourself time to think.
There's no time for that. I must have my freedom this very day.
But why?
Because he'll be here tonight. I want to meet him knowing that I'm completely free.
And then?
I don't want to be able to plead that I'm another man's wife, and that therefore I've no choice. That wouldn't be making a decision. I must be able to choose freely, to let him go away alone or to go with him.
Go with him? Put your life in his hands?
Didn't I put my life in your hands?
Oh, but this man, a stranger, a man you know so little about.
I knew even less about you, and yet I went with you.
At least you knew more or less the sort of life you were taking on. But now you don't even know who he is or what he is.
That's just what makes it so terrible and so hard to resist.
What do you mean by terrible?
I think a thing is terrible when it both frightens me and attracts me. The sea is terrible, too.
Tomorrow, you'll be gone. Then you'll be out of danger. Then I'll give you your freedom. Then we'll cancel our bargain.
Paul, tomorrow it'll be too late.
Here come the children. At least let us spare them for the present.
Doctor, we've got rather a good plan.
We're going out on the fjord this evening and...
No, Hilda, don't tell them.
Well, we've also been making plans. Alida's going to Skjoldvik for a while. She's going tomorrow.
Going away?
Yes, Alida feels she'd like to get back to her beloved sea for a bit.
You're going away? You're leaving us? Is that what you're doing?
Why, Hilda, whatever's the matter?
Nothing. Oh, go if you want to. Go, I don't care.
Arnhem, may I see you for a moment?
Yes, of course.
Valletta, what was the matter with Hilda?
Haven't you realized what it is that Hilda wants? What she's been longing for ever since you came into this house?
No, what is it?
One word of affection from you.
Oh. Supposing there were something for me to do here after all.
Doctor. Good evening, Mrs. Van Gale.
Oh, it's you, Ballaston. Is there to be music again tonight?
Yes, we're giving a concert for the English ship. A good, rousing nautical programme. It's her last trip this year.
Is she in already?
Not yet, Mrs. Van Gale, but you know what it is. Once she's through the islands, she's tying up before you can look round.
Yes, that's true.
It's her last trip. This time there'll be no coming back.
A sad thought, Doctor. And that's why, as I say, we intend to mark the occasion with a little appropriate music. Yes, summer days will soon be over, and ice will bar the way, as the poet says.
Yes, ice will bar the way.
Well, I mustn't be late. Your pardon?
Alida, you still intend to speak with him yourself?
I must. I must be able to choose freely.
You won't be able to choose. I shan't let you.
You can't prevent my choosing. Nobody can. You can forbid me to go with him if that's what I choose. You can keep me here by force. But you can't prevent my choosing him rather than you in my own mind if I have to.
No, you're right. I can't prevent that.
And I've nothing to help me resist. Nothing at home to hold me back. I've no roots in your house, Paul. The children aren't mine in their hearts. When I go away, if I do, either with him tonight or to Skjoldvik tomorrow, I've no keys to hand over, no orders to give. We've built nothing with our lives, so now there's nothing to bind me to this place. Nothing. And no memory of our common happiness to outweigh any other. And tonight, in half an hour, he's coming.
Let's walk round the garden for a little while, shall we?
I daren't. He said I was to wait for him here.
You've got plenty of time.
Very well. But only for a little while. Just a short walk.
If Alida leaves this house, she'll never come back. I know it.
Boletta, it may not be long before you leave this house yourself.
Have you spoken to Father? Have you, Mr. Arnhem?
Your father seems to be preoccupied with other things just now.
Oh, that's how it always is.
It depends entirely on yourself, Boletta, whether you get away from here or not. Whether you see all the things that you've been wanting to see for so long, and learn all the things you've been wanting to learn.
Oh, it would be so wonderful. Oh, but it's impossible. If Father won't...
Couldn't you perhaps bring yourself to accept the help of your one-time tutor?
You, Mr. Arnhem?
There's nothing I wouldn't do to help you. Won't you let me?
Oh, to have a chance of real life after all. Just when I'm afraid it's passing me by. Oh, yes.
Then you feel you can place yourself and your future confidently in my hands?
Of course, why shouldn't I? You of all people. My old tutor who taught me when I was a little girl.
I would like to think that it wasn't entirely because of that. Boletta, could you trust yourself to me for life?
What are you saying?
Will you marry me, Boletta?
But it's impossible. Is that what you meant when you offered...
Listen, Boletta. Listen to me for a moment. This has come as a surprise to you.
How can I help being surprised?
You couldn't know that it was simply because of you that I came here.
Because of me?
When your father wrote to me in the spring, his letter contained a phrase that rather led me to think that your feelings for your former tutor were rather more than those of friendship.
But...
Of course, I know now that wasn't what he meant at all. But I allowed myself to cherish the illusion that there was a girl here who was longing to see me again. When a man like myself is no longer as young as he was, an illusion like that makes a very deep impression on him. I soon found myself developing a very real and grateful affection for you, until I found I had to come and see you again, and tell you that I shared the feelings I believed you had for me.
But now you know it was a mistake.
That doesn't alter it. I shall always think of you as I have since I made the mistake.
Oh, it seems so utterly impossible.
Yes, I understand. Well, the rest of it stands. I will get you away from here and help you to see something of the world.
But that's impossible now.
That's impossible, too.
Oh, you must see that it is after what you've just told me and the answer I've given you. Surely you must see that I can't accept so much from you after this.
So you'd rather stay at home and let life pass you by?
Oh, I hate the very idea of it.
And later, when your father's gone, you might find yourself helpless and alone in the world. Or you might have to give yourself to some other man for whom perhaps you mightn't feel any more affection than you do for me.
Yes. Yes, I realize that. That's quite true. Everything you say is true. Perhaps, after all...
Well?
It may not be so utterly impossible.
What, Boletta?
For me to accept what you propose.
Do you mean that you'll give me the happiness of proving my friendship?
No. I mean, I think I'd rather be your...
My wife?
Yes. If you still think you'd like to have me.
Like? Oh, Boletta.
But don't say anything about it yet.
Why? What's the matter?
Oh, it's that poor young Lingstrand over there. Look, he's talking with Hilda.
I could almost swear it. I could almost swear that Mr. Arnhem is going to ask Boletta to marry him.
Oh, Miss Boletta wouldn't have him, I'm certain.
No. No, she thinks he looks so dreadfully old, and she's afraid he'll soon be going bald.
Oh, not only that, Miss Hilda. She wouldn't have him anyhow. There's somebody else she's promised to think about.
Only to think about?
Yes, while he's away.
In that case, it must be you she's to think about. Is that it, Mr. Lingstrand?
Yeah, I dare say. It's very kind of her.
And when you come back again, will you announce the engagement? Are you going to marry her?
Oh, I don't really think it'd be a good idea. I can't be in a position to marry for several years yet, and when I am, she'll be a bit too old for me, I fancy. Miss Hilda, when I come back, you'll be about the same age as your sister is now, and perhaps you'll have her looks and even her disposition. Then you'll be both of you rolled into one, so to speak.
And that would please you?
Well, it's...
Fascinating to think about.
Yes, it's fascinating.
Oh, look, the English boat's arrived.
Good evening. Here I am, Melodita.
Yes?
Are you ready to go now or not?
You can see for yourself that she isn't.
I'm not thinking of traveling clothes or baggage or anything of that sort. I've everything she can possibly need for the journey already on board. I've taken a cabin for her. I was only asking, Alida, whether you're ready to come with me of your own free will.
Don't tempt me like this.
You must decide now.
To decide once and for all what can never be undone.
Never.
Why didn't you come before?
Alida.
Whatever may be tempting me, drawing me, dragging me out into the unknown, it has all the power of the sea in it.
From what I can see in your face, hear in your voice, you're going to choose me.
My wife has no choice to make. I'm here to choose for her, to protect her. If you don't clear right out of the country now and for good, you may be prevented from doing so.
No, Paul.
Why? What did you do?
I'll have you arrested. I know all about the murder at Skjoldvik.
Paul!
I expected that, so I came suitably prepared.
No! You mustn't shoot him. Rather shoot me.
Don't upset yourself. This gun is for me. I intend to live and die a free man.
Paul! You must hear me say this and say it in front of him. You can keep me here. You have the right and you have the power. But my mind, my thoughts, my longings, my desires, you can't tie those down. They'll go on soaring and seeking out the unknown, for which I was made and from which you've kept me.
Yes, I see it now, Alida. Step by step, you're slipping away from me. In the end, this craving for the infinite, the unattainable, will drive your spirit into the dark.
I feel it, like black wings, huge and silent, hovering over me.
I cancel our bargain, Alida. Here and now, you're free, completely free to choose your own way.
Do you mean that with all your heart?
Yes, with all my heavy heart. I mean it. Because I love you.
Have I come to mean so much to you then? So very much?
We've been married long enough for that.
And I never realized it.
Your thoughts were elsewhere. But now you're completely free of me and mine. You're free to choose, to act on your own responsibility, Alida.
Freely, and on my own responsibility.
The ship is leaving, Alida.
I can never go with you now.
You can't?
And Paul, I can never leave you now.
Alida.
Then It's all over?
Yes, it's all over.
Yes, I can see it is. There's something here that's stronger than I am.
You've no longer any power over me. To me, you're only a dead man who came from the sea and then returned to it. I can no longer be afraid of you, and you no longer attract me.
Goodbye, Mrs. Van Gell. From now on, you're just another shipwreck in my life.
You know, Alida, your mind's like the sea. It ebbs and flows.
Don't you see, Paul? My mind was bound to change the moment I was able to choose.
And the unknown, it no longer attracts you.
It no longer attracts or frightens me anymore. I could peer into it. I could walk into it with open eyes if I wanted to. I was free to choose it, and so I was able to reject it.
Will you come back to me now, Alida?
Yes, now I'm coming back to you. Now I can. For now I can come to you of my own free will, acting on my own responsibility. To you and our children.
You call them ours?
They're not mine yet, but they shall be.
Ah, there's the band. Let's go and listen to it. There they are. The band sounds fine, Ballasted.
The English ship's about to leave, Doctor.
Her last trip this year.
Enjoying yourself, Lingstrand?
Yes, sir.
You too, Hilda?
I'm fascinated.
Mrs. Van Gell, I hear we're to lose you for a while. You're off to Skildwick tomorrow, I understand.
No, she's not going after all. We changed our minds this evening.
Helida, is this true? You're going to stay with us?
Yes, Hilda, dear, if you'll have me.
If I'll have you.
So ends our Caltex play, The Lady from the Sea. In a moment we will give you tonight's cast and tell you about next week's presentation in the Caltex Theatre. Ladies and gentlemen, the producer of tonight's Caltex play, E. Mason Wood.
Thank you. The Lady from the Sea was written by Heinrich Ibsen and adapted for radio by Richard Lane. In the starring role you heard...
I played Alida, the Lady from the Sea.
That was Moya O'Sullivan. Our supporting cast was as follows. Dr. Van Gell, John Alden. Valletta, Dale Furs. Hilda, Jan Coughlin. Arnholm, Leonard Bullen. Langstrand, Bruce Beebe. Ballasted, Maurice Travers. The Stranger, Harp Maguire.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Now this is your compere, Rick Hutton, bidding you good night. On behalf of your hosts, Caltex Oil, marketers of Caltex Super Gasoline and Caltex Gasoline, the world-famous RPM 1030 Special Motor Oil, and Marfec Lubrication.